Hello, this is ScryMind, bringing you another Warcraft 3 audio commentary. This audio is going to be focused on a strategy me and Jake do in 2v2 sometimes with Undead Orc. And this first replay is going to be on Goldshire. I'm going to be doing 3 replays in this audio commentary to showcase the strategy. But the strategy is called STUNLOCK, and it should be apparent what the focus of the strategy is. Basically, it's just getting as much stun, as many stun spells and hero abilities as we can. And in this case, it's going to be Tauren Chieftain, Crypt Lord, and Witch Doctors, and then both of us are going to add Tinker at tier 2 for cluster rockets. And the undead usually goes for fiends and statues, and the orc will go for grunts, witch doctors, and then we add sort of any sort of extra units to counter, maybe destroyers, spirit walkers, a couple of raiders for support, maybe a frostworm, but for the most part it's going to be the fiends and grunts are going to be the main focus there, and again the stun spells of the heroes. So the strategy really sort of relies on a couple of things to work. For one thing, it's surviving the early game and trying to get up to level 3 for your first hero, Tauren Chieftain and Crypt Lord respectively, because that's when the stun spells really start to ramp up in effectiveness. Not that they're ineffective at level 1, just clearly they're going to be, the stun duration is going to be the main point there, increasing as you get leveled up. And also positioning in battles and fighting together are really important with the strategy, because again the fiends are going to be a lot better if the grunts are in front of them tanking in most situations, and also alternatively for the orc army, the grunts aren't going to be very much damage per second DPS. So if the orc is alone, you know, he's sort of susceptible to certain kind of armies, since the orc is going to function as the tanking army in the majority of the situations. So again, it really gets a lot of synergy fighting together, and again also with the with all the AoE heroes together and both of the enemy armies together is going to offer you the biggest potential for those AoE stun spells, area of effect stun spells, to do a lot of work, because the more units they hit, the more effect it's going to have in a battle. So again, clearly you're going to want to have as many opponent units clumped together as you can, and generally that's going to happen when you're fighting together, because again, if you and your ally are together, then the opponents are not going to want to fight you alone. So they're going to, you know, if you push them in certain situations, they're going to need to get together, which is actually going to help you out, because again, it's going to help, like I said, with the having your high DPS units, the fiends in this case, together, and your hero spells are going to be more effective if you can chain the stuns, because, you know, with 4 stun spells plus stasis trap, again, it can really get absurd against certain kinds of armies. Again, ones that are not air, or ones that have a lot of magic immune units are going to avoid the stun. But otherwise, you know, a lot of standard armies like fiends, hunts, you know, grunts, archers, hunts, grunt raider, spirit walker, you know, footmen, riflemen, human casters, you know, they're going to be susceptible to the stun. And again, you know, all heroes are also susceptible, but again, the more stun you can get, it really can help you out with positioning. If they try to, you know, if they try to get their melee units on your fiends or something, you know, stunning them is going to help you avoid that. Now, I didn't really look at the opponents so far in this game, but if we take a quick look here, they are going for a mass tier 1 push with towers, Mountain King and Dreadlord, and grunts, I mean not grunts, ghouls and footmen. So again, they're going to be trying to tower push Jake. The timing is okay, and also I like to point out here, I'm creeping this Murloc camp second. The main reason I do that is because it's pretty easy to creep, but it also drops a pretty good range of good items. And again, lightning shield being probably one of the most effective in a lot of situations, especially right here, since they have a ton of low hit point, small sized melee units. So, you know, lightning shield is really going to wreck that as long as we can get a good position. And so they're pushing. They have a lot of units here. 30 food and or wait, not 30, but 36 food for blue, and his ally has about 34. And again, they're also bringing in these peasants to tower. But as you notice, this lightning shield, especially with stomp going off to help them mitigate them trying to run from it, is really doing a lot of work. It's you know, the real way to counter lightning shield in most situations is just to run away from it. But again, their strategy is kind of forcing them to try to fight this battle here. So, you know, they did run away from it, even though it was stomp. You know, they were still taking a decent amount of damage, but they wanted to protect these towers, and the lightning shield pretty much ruined that plan, since they to avoid it they had to run. So they're getting all out of position, and now we're gonna get another really good lightning shield here with stomp. And as you can see right now, they really have stalled out. And as I've said before, you know, in these audios, timing is sort of a fourth resource in these games. Because timing can make a crucial difference in games. Notice if they stall out at any point, you know, it might give the orc a chance to get to tier 2, and then demolishers are going to render these towers essentially useless if they don't do enough damage during the push, which really entails killing some burrows and maybe getting some damage on the barracks, so you can sort of maybe stop them from getting demolishers, or, you know, killing all the units. Now, they weren't really able to do that, even though just now actually they pretty much surrounded my fiends, and again, Jake's grunt popped out at a very inopportune moment. Kind of hurt me there. Again, I should have microed him quicker, but I lost several fiends there, and you know, took a lot of damage on the others. But they're mainly they're really starting to stall out from all the damage that we've done for lightning shield and the AoE spells. Now, in this particular replay, usually the orc is going to go for endurance aura as the second skill, this sort of secondary skill, because you can't really sustain casting stomps and shockwaves with the mana pool of the Torn Chieftain without seriously spending a ton of money on mana potions. Again, the movement speed is pretty useful a lot of times, but in this case, Jake opted to go for a level 2 shockwave. So he went stomp and then shockwave the next 2 times he leveled up, which is going to be very effective against these clumped up units. And also another advantage having shockwave has is it actually hits the towers. It does damage to buildings, whereas stomp does not. And again, so they have so many units. We really, and our armies are sort of limited right now. Notice I've only got the 3 fiends sort of camping the rest of my units over here in my base, so they don't run through the towers. But again, we don't have the large armies, and we don't want to fight near the towers because of you know, the damage that they output. So again, stomp is really is not quite as effective for this situation. We'd rather be just throwing as much damage as we can at them with shockwave. So, and again, hitting the towers is also going to be useful. So that was one minor tweak that Jake did in this replay. Also, generally we don't add demolishers in a lot of cases, but in this case Jake threw up a second barracks because he wants to get some demolishers out, and because once we really break this tower rush, you know, they're going to be in a bad spot. They haven't even teched, and the tier 1 units that they can produce are just going to be, you know, just going to be ineffective against all these AoE spells that we have. So the fact that we were able to survive until Jake got tier 2 was a pretty much good game. And again, lightning shield sort of crucial there. I'm not sure if we would have necessarily lost without that item, though it definitely made it a lot easier. The game a lot easier that we did get it. So it's very good to know certain item ranges that creep camps can drop. You know, both of these Murloc camps drop the charged items. And again, Lightning Shield is one of the stronger ones, especially given what the opponents were doing. So now see, when you do a tower push, once the ore gets tier 2, the sort of the objective changes. What your goal is to kill the demolishers as fast as you can, so they don't start killing the towers. But they, the early game went so sort of poorly for them. They really didn't do enough damage to, for this to be effective. Now they are gonna, they're gonna kill some of these demolishers, maybe just the one, but they're gonna lose so much doing it that it doesn't even matter. Jake's just gonna be able to make some more demolishers, and my army is pretty much completely intact. Now I've got the statue there to heal, and all these burrows and this watchtower. It was really suicide to run in there, even though they needed to kill the demolishers. That definitely was not gonna. It wasn't gonna happen for them. It's just they weren't really gonna be able to hold these towers. They might have should have just ran and tried to change their strategy. But again, they were tier 1, so not too many options for what they could do going forward. They already put in so many resources to the tower rush that they probably would have just been. It still probably would have lost regardless of if they ran from that situation, but again they didn't. So now here in this next replay is going to be a little more typical game for this strategy, because again in the last time we didn't see any witch doctors. It was really focused on early game and a little bit different play, as Jake went for a shockwave and they towered. It's kind of unusual, honestly, to see mass ghouls and footmen like that. But in this replay, it's going to be not twisted, but it's going to be wetlands. And I'm going to be the red undead player. Jake will be the purple orc. And our opponents are going to be undead elf in this replay. And generally, undead elf and 2v2 are going to go for usually go for hunts and fiends. Though I believe this elf starts with archers. Maybe it has to do with the map. Hunts don't creep this map great. There's a lot of piercing creeps. Notice this gold mine has 5 creeps that have piercing damage, and that it's pretty painful to try to creep that with huntresses. Again, especially if you have Ancient War, or you don't tank it all with your with the demon hunter, and also it has chain lightning and bloodlust. So again, can be a little bit dangerous to creep those, risky. The shop's not quite as bad. All those are all but one of those creeps does normal damage, and so it's usually pretty easy to creep that with hunts, but in low risk. But again, this is a pretty effective strategy against hunts and fiends, or archers and fiends, respectively. Again, really the sort of a good thing that elf has the option of doing against this strategy is going for dryads, because they're pretty versatile and they're immune to all the stuns. So now you're gonna see Jake scouted with his peon, and he's gonna be he decided to try to harass these wood wisps with it, and he's actually gonna do a lot of damage. Again, the opponent is not exactly doing the best thing. You should be trying to move these wisps into the gold mine, trading them off to avoid all this damage. But again, he didn't. So now I didn't really see there. The elf he got a Beastmaster, and he tried to go harass me. I don't really think a Beastmaster is that great on this map, honestly. These creeps, in addition to bloodlust and everything, they have a purge also, and I just honestly I don't really see the appeal of going for a Beastmaster against orc undead. Maybe for the the hawk at later levels, but again, I think that would have been better off just to have either a demon hunter or a priestess. Though I guess they were going for summon heroes, because the undead went for the crypt lord. But again, and they're going to throw up this fast expansion, I think. Or wait, did they throw up an expansion? I'm not sure if they throw up an expansion. They may go ahead and they creep that gold mine. I guess pretty easy to do it with beetles and everything. Now here we're gonna have sort of a fortunate situation, because their army is not, archers are particularly ineffective against fiends and grunts if they're not in mass. And we're gonna get a really good impale off right there, and then a good stomp. So their whole army, the positioning just got really messed up for them. And then they got, another impale, and now you see they've taken all this damage. That's really sort of one of the strengths of this strategy, is if you catch them out of position, or if you get some really good impales and shockwaves off and hit like the maximum amount of units, you can really put them in a bind, and then you can move around a little bit in some cases and sort of force them into bad positioning. Again, they were sort of I moved in my fiends over there and sort of prevented them from running, which is one sort of really the only thing they can do in some situations to counter the stun spell. So that was a really good battle for us. Again, they wanted to creep as much as they could, especially archers. That's kind of one of their what they're effective at doing, is creeping in a standing tier 1 battle. Archers, especially against stun, since Shadow Meld is not going to be effective. Once they get stunned, they'll be out of Shadow Meld. So, and again, here we're going to have another creep jack. I was checking to see if they expanded. I ran into the elf here. He's lost some archers. He had to TP. The timing, really what I wanted to do, I suggested that we push right here, was specifically to prevent lures from going up, but seeing his army creeping here was sort of a temptation. And again, I don't say it was bad for me to creep jack in there, but if I'd have ran in there faster, I probably could have stopped these lures from going up, which is the reasoning I wanted to hit this bait, or to push the elf. Usually it's hard to push elf on this map because of the ramp, and often they will build ancients at the top of the ramp, so it can be really risky to go in here. As you see, they have all these ancients around, and now to run in there, we're sort of trapped. We can't really run out of there now. But this battle's going pretty well. Even though the positioning is all, it's all strange. Really, the grunts aren't, in front of the fiends tanking. But again, we're doing a lot of damage. I've kept pretty much most of my fiends alive. I don't think I'll lose any here. But I am going to be forced to TP. And Jake also, once my fiends are gone, there's no reason for him to stick around in this situation. He does manage to get that stomp kill on that Beastmaster, which was good. If my micro was a little bit better, I maybe could have prevented myself. I really didn't have anywhere to run, but if I could have stayed there, maybe could have. Jake was all damaged. His grunts were pretty damaged already, and my fiends were too. So probably good that we got out of there and got some healing, and lived to fight another day. We did a decent amount of damage. As you can see, the undead player lost a lot. He brought ghouls in and everything, and he's got 2 crypts. And the elf is actually, instead of going for dryads, he is going to go for bears, which actually, bears are pretty susceptible also to the AoE. While they can take a ton of damage, they're really high hit points, and with the healing and everything, you definitely want to have a mix. I think it'd be more effective against this particular strategy, because if his entire army is bears, then they're really in battle. They're really just, especially without a demon hunter for mana burn, they really are just going to be getting stunned the entire battle. So they're just going to be functioning as sort of like really strong grunts or something like that. They do a lot of damage and they have good support spells, but again, definitely going to want to have some dryads. He does actually have some dryads already, so he's doing pretty good. Now, Jake, this was fortunate. Jake had vision of this creep camp, and he saw that Green was creeping it, so I went ahead and ran over here and caught him pretty damaged, and with my AoE spells and sort of the positioning, I was able to force a TP there, which was pretty good. I didn't actually get any unit kills, but made him waste a TP, so we know I didn't actually know he TP'd elf at this point, but when I saw his fiend rallied over there, I sort of did think he probably did. Now then I catch this elf. I don't know if he needed a TP there, but he was really low. So that was really fortunate to catch the elf also right there with a damaged hero. I made him TP also. So now they're both in the elf base. And we're going to go ahead and push the undead base, because they're either going to have to waste TPs or try to run up that ramp. And again, they try to run the ramp. And I'll go ahead and speed it up here, because we're just going to be running to the undead base. But I'm just going to creep this. But so yeah, you know, either you're going to have to waste resources on more TPs, or they're going to have to try to run up this ramp, which is pretty much going to be a instant loss, because with the ramp you're going to get, you know, if they're attacking from below the ramp, they're going to suffer a debuff sort of thing where they miss on some of their attacks, and yeah, so it's going to be really good positioning for us to fight on top of that ramp with extra vision and everything. So again, they're starting to come up. We probably should have been there already, but we go ahead and move back to the ramp and hold it. And now Jake is doing the tanking, and you know, they're really set up to get really hammered by our stun spells. And so cluster rockets, you know, can hit, you know, good range. Stomp is less so. Would have been good if Jake could have been out here with the Torn Chieftain, but again, they're still getting good stomps here on the bears, throwing cluster rockets on pretty much everything. Notice how, you know, how much time they spent being stunned in this battle. It's just really ridiculous. Like I said, you know, once you start to get level 2 impale and stomp, and you know, level 2 tinkers with the you know, that passive ability to give them bigger range on cluster rockets, you know, it really gets out of hand against a lot of armies. So that was pretty lopsided. Again, the ramp was one part of that, and so yeah, that's sometimes in the late game, sometimes the battles can just go like that, even though they have bears, which are, you know, really good unit against you know, fiends and grunts often. If they're getting stunned the entire battle, it doesn't really matter quite as much how effective they are, because, you know, if they're stunned the entire battle, then they're not going to be effective. So again, it's kind of dangerous to go for a large bear army against this strategy, especially, like I said, without a demon hunter. And so that's sort of typical of how when the strategy works well, that's sort of how the end game is going to go against a lot of armies. The strategy is more susceptible to, say, elf orc. They have like a demon hunter and a blade master. They can do a lot of pressure in the early game to prevent you from just creeping at will. And so that's going to limit your effectiveness in the mid game. If they can keep you from getting level 3, then, you know, they're going to have an advantage in mid game oftentimes, because, you know, even at level 1, the blade master and the demon hunter, you know, are pretty just standalone, just pretty effective even without their hero spells. They do a lot of damage, and they're pretty good tanking units. Whereas the Torn Chieftain and the Crypt Lord, while, you know, they're actually pretty good tank units and good damage also, not quite to the level of the Demon Hunter and the Blade Master. And plus, oftentimes, they're going to add in a Shadow Hunter and, you know, the Naga or something like that. And that's going to let them pressure your heroes a lot. And so once you start, if you start falling behind in the hero levels against those heroes, especially with a Torn Chieftain and a Crypt Lord, it is going to be very difficult. And then again, the elf often will go for Dryads at tier 2, which again is just gonna also sort of mitigate the stun abilities that you have. And then you're going to have to rely more on the units, and you know, that can be difficult because you know, like I said, the Demon Hunter and the Blade Master, they're good at the early game. They're, you know, often they're really good late game, so they pretty much in certain situations they can you know, they're gonna just by themselves are gonna be able to do a lot Again, especially at pressuring heroes. If your heroes are low level and they have Hex and Frost Arrow, along with Windwalk and Mana Burn, and you have all melee heroes, they can focus down on those heroes a lot. And if they make one of you and your ally, either one of them TP, you're gonna lose. You're gonna be really ineffective. Grunts by themselves fighting against Dryads and everything, or Fiends by themselves fighting against Dryads and Grunts and stuff like that. It's going to be a losing battle. So it gives them a little better chance if they can sort of really keep your heroes at bay there with the nuke. So with a focus fire. So in this replay, this map sort of lends itself to expansions. Again, I'm the yellow orc in this replay, and Jake is going to be the purple undead. Our opponents are human orc, and they both went for summon heroes, Archmage and Farseer respectively. And like I said, this map has only a few creep camps compared to other maps. I think it just has fewer, and most of the creep camps have like 4 creeps each. And once you get past the first 2 options, you're dealing with sort of. You've got this one creep that can throw Boulder and has Thorn's Aura, and then all these, Piercing and all these other sort of Razor Mane creeps or whatever. So, it kind of limits what your options are. Not a lot of item creeping going on. Maybe the Medicine Man. You can go for item creeped out with a Blade Master or something. But other than that, it's more of a sort of I guess macro style gameplay a little bit. The map is pretty large. There's a lot of spawn locations, so you're gonna need to scout, and running anywhere. All these trees and everything sort of prevent you from getting a whole bunch of creep jacks, as opposed to other maps where there's a lot of shops, and this map has 1 shop, 1 lab, and 1 merc camp. So you're not gonna be seeing like Demon Hunter, Blade Master with 2 boots of speed each, or circlets and everything. They're gonna be a little more limited in that in that regard. And so the human opponent is already throwing up an expansion. He was a little faster creeping with Militia, though after that he sort of was running around. I don't know if he was deciding on what to do, or just kind of just kind of waiting in case we tried to rush his expansion or something. But again, they're sort of letting their advantage go. They were able to creep that gold mine faster than we did with Militia, and the orc, I think he was just really ineffective at creeping his expansion gold mine. Again, with the amount of grunts he had in the Farseer, he should have been able to do that relatively easily if he would have tanked correctly. Notice his Farseer was pretty much full health. He probably should have been tanking with the Farseer a little more, but regardless, they sort of let that advantage slip. They had sort of they were a little bit ahead of us on the creeping, but now they're apart. We're together. Sort of bad idea for this human to come try to harass us. We can. I probably should have followed him with or Jake probably should have followed him with the Crypt Lord to get him pale off, but again, he really couldn't do anything to us right there. We were pretty much full health on everything, and he was damaged on his footmen. 4 footmen are just going to be free experience if you ran in there. So again, the human was really just wasting time right there. I'm not sure what he could have crept, since this next creep camp for him is pretty large. I think that maybe was the reason why he didn't try to creep it. But so now they're apart, and I'm gonna get the Tinker. Jake's tech is a bit behind since he expanded, but we are gonna decide to push. Right now, teal and orange are far apart, so teal is gonna have to burn through a TP if we push this expansion, which is what's gonna happen. And so this was sort of good that we caught them apart, and we're able to force this TP. Our expansion is between our bases. It's a little more maybe easier for us to defend than a human. expansion since it's here, but again, that was mostly because the human could militia creep his, and decided to go ahead and expand it that way. So that was why he did that, though. He probably should have just sent militia up here and expanded that. Would have been maybe a little slower, but again, it wouldn't have let us push quite as simply and make them burn a TP, though his main would have been just as easy to push, maybe. But anyway, so now we have Endurance Aura, and they do not. So we're going to utilize that fact to go up here and harass some burrows a little bit while they're trying to catch up to us. And yeah, so we're just waiting for Jake to get tier 2 and me to get Witch Doctors. And notice I'm actually going up to tier 3, which sometimes I just stay at tier 2 with a strategy because you know, while heal wards are pretty effective, the only thing really tier 3 offers besides heal wards is you know, fortified burrows or torrent or tiny great hall and lightning orb, which, you know, is okay, but a lot of times I don't utilize a lot of stuff except for heal wards is really the only thing most of the time I'm gonna go for. Tiny great hall is sort of situational. Same for a lightning orb without a blade master, and Tauren definitely. So, but in this situation, I am actually going to go ahead and go for the Tiny Great Hall here in a bit, and also, since I get the expansion up, then I'm going to also add some Tauren in, which, you know, I don't really think they were game deciding, maybe even a liability actually, because Orange ends up going for Mask Griffin, which again is one way to counter our heroes, is to have Mass Air, because the hero spells do not affect air units unless maybe they're webbed, but otherwise the air is going to be pretty much okay to avoid the stun. But on the flip side, fiends and grunts are usually pretty effective against most air units except for, you know, tier 3 air, and even then, you know, the fiends are still pretty decent against it. The grunts are going to be pretty easy pickings. That's why you want to fight together though most of the time, because the orc is going to be limited in terms of anti-air, you know, ensnare, but you're only going to have a few raiders, if any at all. And then, you know, Witch Doctors can hit air, but you're not going to have a massive Witch Doctors either, so. And they only do like 10 to 14 damage, so. Now here we're going to go do another Burrow Harass. Probably was, arguably was a waste of time for me to be here, because I don't really do that much damage. I get off a couple of stomps and everything, but, you know, Jake probably could have just distracted them, and I would have been better off probably getting level 3 on my hero, I guess, since I'm only level 2 here. But I don't really sustain too many losses. I do end up having a TP and use a bunch of healing salves, but we keep them in their base and kind of buying time for me to get the tier 3 stuff, and Jake just to keep massing up on his production. And Jake was doing a lot of good, keeping the orc busy with Zeppelin Harass. Now I notice the orc is throwing up some watchtowers, kind of a little bit of wasted resources, even though we are going to end up pushing those towers later. And notice he's got all these grunts. He really, and now he's going to add some Tauren totems here. But you know, the orc doesn't have any magic immune units, so. You know, the only thing the orc can really do to avoid getting stunned is to go for Wyvern, Wind Riders, or, you know, maybe some kind of weird Bat Rider harass. But, you know, orc is sort of susceptible to the stun if you can level it up. On the flip side, though, grunts have a lot of hit points, so, you know, they're kind of like bears in that, you know, they can take a lot of stun. A lot of the stun spells without really being too damaged. But now I encountered this orc alone. You know, I probably would have had a good, you know, I probably could have fought him pretty easily by myself. But I think I saw the human with my sentry ward, and you know, and I didn't want to fight them alone because that would have been, you know, it wouldn't have really been that advantageous to me since I don't have a lot of DPS with the grunts. And these hero choices that I have, it's mostly, you know, the orc army is mostly the tanking army, so I need to hook up with Jake's fiends, and then we can really take advantage of good positioning. All 4 of our heroes spells to stun everything, get them all clumped up, and notice how many units are getting hit by these stun spells. You know, it's just crazy, and this lightning shield is going to do a lot of damage, well positioned. And again, notice all, like, you know, pretty much like maybe 60% of their army was just, you know, just getting stunned for this entire battle. Jake actually doesn't have web yet, so that griffin is sort of living dangerously there. But again, now, you know, we take out all their melee, and now they just got the rifles, which, you know, the rifles just as susceptible to the stun now that we can get to them. And they pretty much lost that battle decisively. You know, Jake's army is, I don't even know if he lost anything. It's pretty much all intact. You know, my army is fairly intact as well. And we leveled up. I'm almost level 4 on the Tauren Chieftain. We got level 2 on the Tinkers, I believe. Can't seem to click them. But yeah, so that went really well for us. Jake is level 3 on his Crypt Lord. And now they're separated again. We pretty much assume the Orc lost everything unit-wise, and the human lost most of his units as well, or a lot of them. He did manage to get some rifles out and his griffins, but and now for some reason he's throwing up a workshop. Not exactly sure what he was going for there. He has these, maybe he was going to go for gyros or something, but he's got 3 griffin aviaries. Well, actually I can't count. He has 2 griffin aviaries, and he's just massing up these griffins right now, which are, you know, going to be good against my army, but not so much against Jake's. Jake really didn't lose a lot of fiends, so he has a large number of fiends and also destroyers. So or the 1 destroyer. So again, it's going to be we're going to be in pretty good shape here. Pretty much game over. He should have gotten Teal should have gotten the fortified upgrade for these towers. Maybe would have you know, saved his base a little bit longer, but again, we taken out the totem, Tauren totem, and now, you know, this is you know, with the good positioning. They don't have any anti-caster units, so this heal ward, you know, they need to kill that, and but I can just throw some more out there. So now their positioning really got messed up because those griffin, you know, tried to kill that heal ward, just came in there and got webbed. Everything's getting stunned. So again, but you can stun the air units if they're webbed or ensnared. So that's a good thing to note. I don't think I specifically tried to do that. Honestly, a lot of times I'm just trying to get the heroes in position, the Tauren Chieftain's position, and the Crypt Lord. Try to get them in position to hit as many ground units as you can. Again, it's just icing on the cake if you can manage to get some of their air units webbed or ensnared, to hit those as well, because especially for Griffin, those are high DPS units, so the more they're stunned, the better off you're going to be in terms of fighting them. But, you know, again, usually it's going to be the ground units that are going to have the mass to make it most effective to go for them. You want to get your Crypt Lord. You know, the stuns work they all work differently. Impale is going to hit in a line, sort of like Shockwave would, and whereas Stomp is going to be a radius around the Tauren, as you probably know. And then the Tinkers, they're sort of like Blizzard or Flame Strike. They have like a circular radius, and but they're ranged. So the Tinkers, you know, you want to keep them sort of, you know, they're okay tanking units, but you know, often you're going to want to keep them sort of behind the grunts and everything, because they don't have to be up close like the Tauren Chieftain or the Crypt Lord per se. So again, that's pretty much the summary of this strat, how it works in general, sort of the weaknesses, and yeah, some of the strengths. A lot of, positioning, super important. Stun can really help you and hurt your opponent's positioning. Fighting together, really important most of the time, especially past mid game. You're gonna want to be together pretty much all the time in battles then, because you're really sort of susceptible a lot of times. The army types, they have weaknesses, as I pointed out. So, the orc is not going to want to fight alone. Undead often not going to want to fight alone. And yeah, so if you can survive the early game pretty well, and again, it's going to be a lot easier unless you're against, like a demon hunter or a blade master, then you're going to be pretty, you're usually going to be pretty well off. Again, sort of the anti-magic, you're not going to have, if you don't add in spirit walkers, it's going to be a long time before you have access to destroyers with a strategy. But casters are also susceptible to the AoE, so if you can just pick those off, with the fiends and stun spells, it shouldn't be too bad. Though right at mid game, when sorceresses come out, or maybe something crazy like banshees or necromancers, or spirit link, things like that, can be, mass summon hero units, mass summon heroes. Your only real option before destroyers is going to be spirit walkers. Though oftentimes you don't actually have to specifically counter casters with a strategy, just simply for the fact that the stun spells will hit them. They will do decent amount of damage. Fiends are going to do okay as long as they have good positioning. They do extra to the casters, and then grunts have a lot of hit points, so while they're gonna take a beating from the magic damage, and with slow they're going to be in terms of a lot of, like, if it's going to be a hit and run fight, they're trying to kite your armies, that's really where the weakness of the grunts is going to be exposed, or the weakness of no anti-magic unit. But it doesn't take much to add in a spirit walker, get adept, and maybe one or two spirit walkers if really necessary. But oftentimes, you're gonna be okay against a lot of combinations and strategies. But again, one weakness though is against sort of proto styles, towers. It's gonna be hard to push towers with this strategy, because none of your hero spells are gonna do anything except for, I think, cluster rockets will do damage to buildings, but it's not that much. And then impale and stomp obviously aren't going to do anything to them. So, well positioned bases with towers behind buildings are going to be hard to push. So again, certain strategies are going to limit your options, but that's the case in pretty much any game. So that's how that strategy goes. STUNLOCK. It's a really fun strategy. Oftentimes, the late game, it can just get out of hand if you have a lot of mana and leveled up heroes, to see just how much time you can stun like all your opponent's units. I think one time we had a game where they tried to surround the Tauren Chieftain, and I think he even had an Ankh or something, or just a bunch of potions, and I think he was already like level 4, and our other heroes were maybe 2 or 3 or something, and yeah, so they had a bunch of huntresses and fiends, and we were able to stun like 90% of their army for like probably 50 plus seconds consecutively. It was just really well timed with the stun spells. If you can manage to do that, wait just a few seconds after they get hit with impale, and then throw cluster rockets and stomp and just repeat, it can just get ridiculous. A whole 40-50 seconds of an army being just completely taken out of the, as far as damage goes, completely taken out of the battle is pretty ridiculous. And And so yeah, that's where it comes in, the fun and effectiveness of it. So hopefully you can have fun with this strategy and had fun watching these replays, and maybe got another strategy to add to the repertoire. It's it has weaknesses, as I said, but it's pretty fun. So this is ScryMind signing out.